Charlie Munger once looked a young investor in the eye and said something that might sound discouraging at first. He said that the first $100,000 is a bitch, but you have to do it. He said that he did not care what you had to do. He said if it meant walking everywhere and not eating anything that was not purchased with a coupon, you had to find a way to get your hands on that first $100,000. After that, he promised, you can ease off the gas. Why would a billionaire, known for his patience and his calm demeanor, use such aggressive language about a specific number? It is because he understood the mathematics of wealth better than almost anyone else. He knew that money has a tipping point. Most people spend their entire lives pushing a heavy boulder up a hill, never realizing that if they just pushed it a few feet further, gravity would take over and the boulder would start rolling on its own. That point, mathematically speaking, happens right around $100,000. You've probably heard that the rich get richer. That is not just a saying to make you feel bad about your bank account. It is a mathematical certainty based on how compound interest functions. But here is the secret that nobody tells you. The hardest part of getting rich is not making the millions at the end. The hardest part is the very beginning. It is that initial grind from 0 to 6 figures. Once you cross that line, the rules of the game change completely. Your money starts working harder than you do. Think about it this way. If you have nothing saved, every single dollar you have must come from your own sweat and labor. You have to trade your time for it. But once you have a capital base of $100,000, that money is like an employee who works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, never calls in sick, and never asks for a raise. In fact, that employee helps you hire more employees, who then hire even more. This is the phenomenon we call escape velocity. In this video, we are going to break down exactly why this specific number is the magic threshold. We are not just going to talk about theory. We are going to look at the cold, hard math of how $100,000 becomes $2 million, often with zero additional effort from you. We are going to dismantle the common myths that keep people stuck at zero. And we are going to look at the specific blueprint that Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett have used to build empires. But I have to warn you, what we are about to discuss requires a shift in how you view money. It requires you to stop looking at cash as something to spend and start seeing it as something to plant. Most people will watch this video and go back to their normal habits. They will continue to push that boulder uphill forever. But for the few of you who are ready to understand the mechanics of compounding, this might be the most important 30 minutes of your financial life. We're going to show you that the path to $2 million is not about hitting a lottery jackpot or picking the next hot cryptocurrency. It is about understanding the boring, beautiful, and inevitable math of the first $100,000. So, if you are tired of working for money and you are ready to let your money work for you, put away your phone, close the other tabs on your browser, and let us dive into the untold secret of wealth. Before we go any further, we need to be clear about who we are taking advice from. Charlie Munger was not just a wealthy investor. He was the intellectual architect behind Berkshire Hathaway, one of the most successful companies in the history of the United States. While Warren Buffett often became the face of the operation, it was Munger who pushed for the strategy of buying wonderful businesses at fair prices. Together, they compounded capital at roughly 20% per year for over 5 decades. To put that in perspective, the general stock market, often measured by the Standard & Poor 500 index, usually returns about 10% per year on average. Munger did not just beat the market, he crushed it. And he did it not by being frantic or speculative, but by being rational, patient, and aggressively disciplined. Why does this matter to you right now? If you are between the ages of 35 and 65, you are likely in what economists call the peak earning years. But for many of you, these are also the peak spending years. You might have a mortgage that feels like a lead weight. You might have children who need braces or college tuition. You might be helping aging parents. You look at your retirement account, your 401k or your individual retirement account, and you feel a knot in your stomach. You do the math in your head, and it does not seem to add up. You calculate how much you are saving every month, multiply it by the number of years you have left until you want to retire, and the final number looks frighteningly small. This brings us to a critical pause moment. Nothing in this video is personal financial advice. Think of it as education and a framework to help you make your own decisions. But understand this. The anxiety you feel is not because you are bad at math. It is because human beings are biologically wired to think linearly, while wealth is built exponentially. Let that sink in for a moment. We evolved in a linear world. If you walk for 1 hour, you travel 3 miles. If you walk for 2 hours, you travel 6 miles. Input equals output. It makes intuitive sense. So when you look at your finances, you assume that to get twice as much money, you need to work twice as hard or save twice as much. But that is the trap. That is the linear thinking that keeps the middle class stuck on a hamster wheel. You think that if you are halfway through your career, you should have half of your wealth built. But that is simply not true. In the world of compounding, 50% of the time does not equal 50% of the result. In fact, in a true compounding curve, the vast majority of the growth happens at the very end. Warren Buffett accumulated 99% of his net worth after his 50th birthday. Think about that. 99% came in the second half of his life. If he had stopped investing at 60, no one would know his name today. Most people get discouraged because they spend years sacrificing and saving, only to see their balance grow slowly. They look at the first 5 years of their investment journey and think, is this it? Is this all I get for my sacrifice? They feel like they are throwing money into a black hole because they do not see immediate explosive results. They stop. They pull the money out to buy a boat or a renovation or a new car, thinking that they can always start again later. But stopping is the single most destructive thing you can do. When you interrupt the compounding process early, you are not just killing the interest you would have earned this year. You are killing the interest on that interest, and the interest on that interest for decades to come. You are effectively chopping down an apple tree because it did not give you fruit in the first month. The problem is not your salary. The problem is not the economy. The problem is that you are judging your progress by linear standards in an exponential game. You are looking at the heavy lifting part of the curve, the part where you are pushing the boulder, and assuming it will always be this hard. You do not see that you are just inches away from the crest of the hill. You do not see that once you hit that first $100,000, the physics of your money will shift entirely. But here is what most people get wrong about that first major milestone and why it changes everything. The first major principle we need to establish is the concept of critical mass. In physics, critical mass is the minimum amount of material needed to maintain a nuclear chain reaction. In finance, it is the minimum amount of capital needed for your investment returns to become meaningful enough to impact your life. That number for most middle-class Americans is $100,000. Charlie Munger put it simply when he said, "The big money is not in the buying and selling, but in the waiting." I'll wait, but waiting only pays off if you have something substantial waiting for you. Let us look at the specific numbers to understand why this threshold matters so much. Imagine you are starting with $0. You decide to be responsible and you invest $10,000. You put it into a standard index fund tracking the Standard & Poor 500. Let us assume a conservative average return of 7% per year. At the end of year one, your $10,000 has earned you $700. That is nice, but it is not life-changing. You can buy a nice dinner or perhaps pay a few bills, but it does not feel like wealth. It certainly does not feel like enough to justify the sacrifice of saving that $10,000 in the first place. This is where most people quit. They see $700 and think the game is rigged. Now fast forward. Imagine you have scraped and clawed your way to that first $100,000. You leave it in that same fund, earning that same 7% return. At the end of the year, that $100,000 generates $7,000 in profit. Pause and think about that. $7,000. That is more than $500 a month. For many Americans, that is a car payment. That is a significant portion of a mortgage payment. And you did not have to work a single extra hour for it. Your money generated that value while you were sleeping, while you were on vacation, or while you were watching television. Here is the critical realization. When you have $10,000, a 10% market drop loses you $1,000. It hurts, but it is manageable. When you have $100,000, a 10% gain earns you $10,000. Suddenly, your portfolio is generating as much money in a good year as a part-time job. This leads us to the most dangerous misconception people have about building wealth. Most people believe that to get rich, they need to find an investment that offers massive returns. They look for the stock that will double in 6 months. They want the 100% return. But Munger and Buffett teach us the opposite. You do not need extraordinary returns. You need a significant base. A 10% return on $100,000 is worth exactly the same as a 100% return on $10,000. But getting a 10% return is highly probable and repeatable over time, while finding an investment that doubles in a year is incredibly risky and rare. When you focus on the first $100,000, you are focusing on building the engine. Before this point, you are pushing the car. After this point, the engine turns on. You still have to steer, but the heavy lifting is being shared between you and your capital. To summarize this foundation, the game is not about picking the winning lottery ticket. It is about aggressively accumulating capital until your annual returns start to equal your annual contributions. Once your money can save as much as you can save, you have reached the tipping point. You have built the foundation. Now that we understand why the first $100,000 is the mathematical turning point, we need to look at how this actually plays out over time. This is where the numbers get truly shocking. Now that we have established that the first $100,000 is the hardest step, let us look at exactly how this sum transforms into $2 million. This brings us to a simple but powerful rule of thumb in finance known as the Rule of 72. This rule helps you estimate how long it will take for your money to double at a given interest rate. You simply divide the number 72 by your annual rate of return. If you are investing in a broad market index fund, like one tracking the Standard & Poor 500, history suggests you might expect an average annual return of roughly 9 to 10% over long periods, before inflation. For the sake of conservative planning, let us use 8%. 72 divided by 8 is 9. This means that at an 8% return, your money doubles every 9 years. Here is where the magic happens. Let us say you work incredibly hard in your 30s to save that first $100,000. You reach that milestone at age 35. Then you decide you never want to save another penny for retirement. You just leave that money alone. You do not touch it. You do not add to it. You just let it sit. In 9 years, at age 44, your $100,000 becomes $200,000. In another 9 years, at age 53, it doubles again to $400,000. In another 9 years, at age 62, it becomes $800,000. And if you can wait just a little longer, perhaps until age 71, it becomes $1,600,000. That is over $1.5 million, created from your initial seed of $100,000, without you lifting a finger for nearly 40 years. But wait, our title promised $2 million. How do we get there? The answer lies in what you do after the first $100,000. Most people, once they see their account growing, do not stop saving. They keep adding fuel to the fire. If you start with $100,000 at age 35, and you continue to contribute just $500 a month, which is far less than what it took you to save the first $100,000, the numbers explode. With that small monthly addition, Assuming the same 8% return by age 65, you are looking at nearly $2 million. Specifically, the math lands you right around $1,900,000. Think about the difference here. The first $100,000 might have taken you 5 or 7 years of extreme discipline, saving over $1,000 a month. But the next $1.9 million came from a combination of time and a much smaller, easier monthly contribution. This is the application of the concept. The heavy lifting is done at the front. Charlie Munger famously said, "It is remarkable how much long-term advantage people like us have gotten by trying to be consistently not stupid instead of trying to be very intelligent." What did he mean by consistently not stupid in this context? He meant avoiding the common mistakes that kill this compounding process. The biggest mistake is lifestyle creep. As soon as people see their net worth hit 6 figures, they feel rich. They trade in the reliable sedan for a luxury lease. They upgrade their house. They start eating out 4 nights a week. They look at their investment account and think, I have $100,000. I can afford to take out $10,000 for a dream vacation. But they are not just spending $10,000. They are spending the doubling potential of that money. If you take out $10,000 at age 35, you're actually removing what would have been $80,000 or more by the time you retire. You are eating your own future. Another common mistake is getting too clever. Once people have a little bit of capital, they often get bored with standard index funds. They think they need to become sophisticated traders. They start buying individual stocks, dabbling in options, or chasing trends. They try to be very intelligent, as Munger put it, and often they underperform the simple, boring index fund. They interrupt the compounding machine by trying to tinker with the engine while it is running. So the application strategy is twofold. First, race to $100,000 as fast as humanly possible. Treat it like a financial emergency. Cut costs, work extra hours, sell things you do not need, do whatever it takes to fill the tank. Second, once you are there, switch to maintenance mode, where you protect that capital at all costs and continue to feed it steadily, even if the monthly amounts are smaller. You do not need to hit a home run. You just need to get on base and stay there. But there is a level beyond this. There is a way to look at money that separates the wealthy from the merely comfortable. This is where Charlie Munger's deeper wisdom comes into play. We have covered the math and we have covered the method, but if math and method were all it took, every accountant in the United States would be a billionaire. There is a third element, a secret sauce that separates the people who simply retire comfortably from the people who build dynastic wealth. This brings us to the advanced insights of Charlie Munger, specifically his mental models for viewing the world. The average investor spends all their time trying to be smart. They try to predict what the Federal Reserve will do next week. They try to guess which tech company will invent the next smartphone. They are constantly trying to add points to their intelligence quotient. But Munger had a different approach. He believed that the road to exceptional wealth wasn't about being smarter than everyone else. It was about being more disciplined than everyone else. He famously said, "A lot of people with high IQs are terrible investors because they have got terrible temperaments. You need to keep raw, irrational emotion under control." This leads us to an advanced concept called inversion. This was Munger's favorite way to solve difficult problems. Instead of asking us, how can I help my $100,000 grow into $2 million? Munger would ask the opposite. What would I do if I wanted to guarantee that I end up poor? If you wanted to guarantee poverty, what would you do? You would interrupt your compounding every time the news got scary. You would pay high fees to consultants who do not beat the market. You would buy things you do not understand just because your neighbor bought them. You would treat the stock market like a casino, trading in and out every day. Munger's insight is simple. If you identify the behaviors that guarantee failure and you strictly avoid them, success becomes the natural byproduct. It sounds too simple to be true, but this is the difference between the amateur and the master. The amateur tries to win. The master tries not to lose. By aggressively removing stupidity from your financial life, you leave room for brilliance to happen on its own. This brings us to a second advanced insight, the concept of the fat pitch. In baseball, a batter might stand at the plate and watch 2 or 3 strikes go by if they are in bad locations. They are waiting for that one perfect pitch, the one that is right in the middle of the zone, the one they can hit out of the park. Investing, Munger argued, is the same except for one huge advantage. In investing, there are no called strikes. You can stand there and watch thousands of investment opportunities float by. You can watch Tesla go up, you can watch Bitcoin go down, you can watch real estate boom and bust, and you do not have to swing at any of them. You can wait for years until you see something that you understand perfectly, something that is priced so low it is almost a crime not to buy it. And then, when that moment comes, you swing with everything you have. This is why that first $100,000 is so critical. It is your ammunition. If you spot the opportunity of a lifetime, perhaps a market crash where blue chip companies are selling for half their value, but you have zero capital because you bought a new truck last year, you are helpless. You are a spectator. But if you have that $100,000 sitting there, compounding and waiting, you are a predator. You can step in when everyone else is stepping out. Munger put it this way: it takes character to sit with all that cash and do nothing. I did not get to where I am by going after mediocre opportunities. Most people feel the itch to do something with their money constantly. They feel that if their money is just sitting in a boring index fund, they are missing out. They want action. But the advanced investor understands that boredom is your friend. Boredom is profitable. The ability to sit on your hands and do absolutely nothing for 3 years and then act aggressively for 3 days is a superpower. Let us look at a real example from Munger's career. For years, Berkshire Hathaway sat on billions of dollars in cash. Critics said they were old, out of touch, and wasting potential returns. Then the financial crisis of 2008 happened. While the rest of the world was panicking and banks were collapsing, Munger and Buffett answered the phone. They deployed billions of dollars in a matter of weeks, buying preferred shares in companies like Goldman Sachs and General Electric at terms that were incredibly favorable to them. They could only do that because they had the cash ready. They had waited for the fat pitch. You might be thinking, but I'm not a billionaire. I cannot buy Goldman Sachs. No, but the principle applies perfectly to your $100,000. When the market corrects, and it will correct, the person with no savings panics and sells to protect what little they have left. The person with $100,000 and a Munger mindset sees the sale. They see that their automatic contributions are now buying more shares for the same price. They might even increase their contribution rate during the downturn. They understand that volatility is the price of admission for high returns. Finally, we must touch on the Lollapalooza effect. This was Munger's term for when multiple forces move in the same direction at the same time to produce a result that is not just additive, but explosive. In your financial life, a Lollapalooza happens when 3 things converge. First, you have your capital base, the $100,000. Second, you have a long runway of time, 10 or 20 years. Third, you have the discipline to avoid interrupting the process. When these 3 combine, the result is not just a linear increase in wealth. It is a vertical line. It is the moment where your investment returns in a single year exceed your annual salary. That is the moment you become financially free. It is not magic. It is the natural consequence of applying rational behavior to a mathematical system over a long period of time. So the advanced insight is not a complex trading algorithm. It is a behavioral shift. It is shifting from how do I make money fast to how do I endure long enough for the Lollapalooza to kick in. It is about having the arrogance to ignore the crowd when they are euphoric, and the courage to ignore the crowd when they are terrified. This is the mental armor you need to wear if you want to protect that $100,000 long enough for it to become $2 million. Without this mindset, the math does not matter because you will sell at the bottom or buy at the top. With this mindset, the math becomes inevitable. Now that we have the math, the method, and the mindset, we need to bring this down to earth. What do you actually do when you wake up tomorrow morning? How do you turn this philosophy into a checklist? We have talked about the theory, the math, and the mindset. Now we are going to look at the practical application. Theories are wonderful, but they do not pay the electric bill, and they certainly do not fund a retirement. If you close this video and do not change your behavior, then we have wasted our time. So here is your specific step-by-step battle plan for tomorrow morning. Action step number 1 is what we call the brutal audit. You cannot improve what you do not measure. Most people have a vague idea of their finances. They know they have some debt and some savings. This ambiguity is a defense mechanism. It protects you from the pain of reality, but it also prevents you from making progress. Tomorrow morning, you're going to calculate your net worth. You're going to list every single asset you own. This includes the money in your checking account, your savings account, your individual retirement account, and the equity in your home. Then you're going to list every single liability. This includes your credit card balances, your student loans, your car notes, and your mortgage. Subtract the liabilities from the assets. For many of you, this number might be shocking. It might even be negative. That is okay. Charlie Munger did not start with $1 billion. He started with nothing. The point of the audit is not to make you feel guilty. It is to give you a baseline. You need to know exactly how far you are from that first $100,000. Is it $20,000 away? Is it $80,000 away? Once you have the number, you have a target. Action. Step number 2 is to create the gap. The gap is simply the difference between what you earn and what you spend. This is the only lever you can pull. You cannot control the stock market returns. You cannot control the inflation rate. You can only control the gap. To reach the first $100,000 quickly, you need a large gap. This brings us back to Munger's advice about the first $100,000 being a struggle. If you are serious about this, you need to look at your 3 biggest expenses: housing, transportation, and food. Can you refinance your mortgage? Can you move to a smaller apartment for 2 years? Can you sell the truck that cost you $800 a month and buy a used sedan for cash? These are painful choices. But remember, they are temporary. You are not living like a monk forever. You are living like a monk until you hit critical mass. You are buying your freedom. Action step number 3 is to choose your vehicle. Where do you actually put the money? Do not overcomplicate this. You do not need a hedge fund manager. You do not need complex insurance products. If your employer offers a 401k plan with a match, that is your first priority. That match is free money. It is an instant 100% return on your investment. If you are not taking the full match, you are literally walking past $100 bills on the sidewalk. After the match, look at a Roth individual retirement account. The tax advantages here are powerful because your money grows tax-free forever. Inside these accounts, what do you buy? For 99% of people, the answer is a low-cost, broad market index fund. You want a fund that owns the entire United States stock market or the Standard and Poor 500 companies. Why? Because over the last century, American business has been the greatest wealth creation engine in history. By buying an index fund, you're betting that companies like Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon will continue to make money. You are not betting on one horse, you are betting on the track. Action step number 4 is automation. This is the most critical step. Human willpower is a finite resource. If you have to decide every month to save money, eventually you will fail. You will have a bad month, or you will see a sale on television, and you will skip a contribution. You must remove yourself from the equation. Set up an automatic transfer from your checking account to your investment account that happens on the same day you get paid. The money should leave your account before you even see it. You want to learn to live on what is left over rather than saving what is left over. As Munger said, show me the incentive, and I will show you the outcome. If the incentive is to spend whatever is in your checking account, you will spend it. If the money is gone before you see it, you will adapt. Now let us address the "but what if" objections, because I know you have them. But what if I have debt? This is a common roadblock. If you have high interest consumer debt, like credit cards with interest rates of 20% or higher, this is a hair on fire emergency. You cannot build wealth earning 8% in the market while you are paying 20% to a bank. In this case, your investment is paying off the debt. Every dollar of debt you pay off is a guaranteed 20% return. That is better than any stock picker can promise you. Clear the high interest debt first, then attack the $100,000 goal. But what if I am starting late? I am 50 years old. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. If you are 50, you still have 15 or 20 years until traditional retirement. If you start today and aggressively pursue that first $100,000, you can still let compounding work for you for a decade. It is harder, yes. You will have to save more aggressively than a 25-year-old, but the math still works. The alternative is doing nothing and arriving at age 65 with zero. Do not let regret paralyze you. But what if the market crashes right after I invest? This is the fear that keeps people poor. They sit on the sidelines waiting for the perfect time. But study after study has shown that time in the market beats timing the market. If you invest your money and the market drops 20% next month, it feels terrible. But if you are investing for the next 20 years, that drop is actually a gift. It means your next monthly contribution buys more shares at a cheaper price. You want the market to go down while you are in the accumulation phase. You should only worry about the market going down when you are selling, which is decades away. But what if I don't know how to pick stocks? Good, you should not pick stocks. Most professional fund managers who look at charts for 12 hours a day cannot beat the market average over the long term. You have a job and a life. You have no business trying to outsmart the market. By buying the entire index, you guarantee that you get the market return. You accept that you will never be the top performing investor in the world, but you also guarantee you will never be the one who loses everything on a bad bet. You are playing for the average, and as we saw in the math section, the average makes you a millionaire. Here is your homework. Do not just watch the next video. Do not just scroll to the comments. Take out a piece of paper, write down your net worth, write down your monthly spending, calculate your gap, set up the automatic transfer. The first step is the hardest. The first $100,000 is the hardest. But once you take these actions, you are no longer just hoping to be rich. You are engineering it. You are building a machine that will take care of you. We have one final section to bring this all together, to synthesize the emotional and the practical, and to send you off with the right perspective for the long journey ahead. We have arrived at the final synthesis. We have traveled from the cold, hard mathematics of compound interest to the warm, messy reality of human psychology. We have dismantled the myth that you need a high income to be wealthy, and we have replaced it with the truth that you need a high savings rate and the patience of a saint. But before we part ways, we need to address the most important question of all. Why are we doing this? Why sacrifice the nice car today? Why skip the expensive dinners? Why walk when you could ride? Is it just to see a number on a screen go from 6 digits to 7 digits? If that is your only motivation, you will likely fail. A number on a screen is not enough to keep you warm on a cold night, or to keep you disciplined when the world is telling you to spend. Charlie Munger gave us the answer, though it is one that is rarely quoted on financial news channels. He said, "I did not intend to get rich. I just wanted to get independent." Let that sink in for a moment. Independence. That is what we are really talking about. We are not talking about buying a yacht. We are not talking about gold-plated watches. We are talking about the ability to wake up in the morning and say, "I own my time." When you are at $0, you are a servant to your immediate needs. You have to work to eat. You have to tolerate a toxic boss because you have rent to pay. You are fragile. When you hit that first $100,000, the chains loosen. You have breathing room. You have options. When that $100,000 compounds into $2 million, you are free. You work because you want to, not because you have to. You can speak your mind because you are not afraid of being fired. You can pursue projects that matter to you, even if they do not pay well. You can be a better parent, a better partner, and a better citizen because you are operating from a place of stability, not scarcity. This journey is about reclaiming your life from the cycle of consumerism that is designed to keep you poor. Every advertisement you see, every commercial you watch, is an attempt to separate you from your wealth. They want you to trade your freedom for a shiny object. When you decide to pursue the first $100,000, you are engaging in an act of rebellion. You are saying that your future freedom is more valuable than their current product. The beauty of this path is that the person you become on the journey to the first $100,000 is worth more than the money itself. To get there, you have to develop discipline. You have to develop patience. You have to learn to delay gratification. You have to learn to ignore the herd, these are traits that will serve you in every single aspect of your life, not just your bank account. If you were handed $2 million today, without the character to manage it, you would likely lose it. We see this with lottery winners all the time. But if you grind your way to that first $100,000 and then let it compound, you grow alongside your money. By the time you are a millionaire, you will have the wisdom to handle it. Charlie Munger lived to be 99 years old. He spent nearly a century learning, investing, and teaching. His life was a testament to the idea that wealth is not the end goal, but a tool that allows you to live a rational, moral, and useful life. He proved that you do not have to be predatory to be rich. You do not have to be frantic. You just have to be consistent. He left us with one final thought that perfectly encapsulates everything we have discussed today. He said, spend each day trying to be a little wiser than you were when you woke up. Discharge your duties faithfully and well. System by system you get ahead, but not fast. Yet, you do get ahead substantially in a long life. That is the promise. It is not fast. It is not sexy. It will not make for a viral social media post about getting rich in 30 days. But it is true, and in a world of noise and hype, the truth is the most valuable asset you can own. You now have the map. You understand the math. You know that the first $100,000 is the price of admission to a life of freedom. The heavy lifting is waiting for you. The boulder is at the bottom of the hill. It is time to start pushing. Now I have a question for you. We have talked a lot about the obstacles to building wealth, from debt to psychology. But I want to know your specific situation. Go down to the comments and tell me, what is the single biggest barrier standing between you and your first $100,000 right now? Is it the cost of housing? Is it student loans? Is it simply not knowing where to start? I read the comments because I want to know what real people are facing, and your answers help me decide what video to make next. Speaking of the next video, we have discussed how to let your money grow once you have it. But many of you are probably asking, that is great, but how do I specifically invest the very first $1,000 if I am starting from absolute zero? In the next video, I'm going to do a deep dive into the specific mechanics of the first $1,000, breaking down the exact accounts and funds to look at so you do not make a mistake on day one. If you found value in this deep dive, and if you want truth instead of hype, do me a favor and click the subscribe button. We are building a community of rational investors here, and I would love for you to be a part of it. Thank you for giving me your time and attention today. Remember, the first $100,000 is a bitch, but you have to do it. Go start today. I will see you in the next video.